Welcome. So what I'm going to do is show you how to factor this equation, or actually solve by factoring, when we have y equals 4x squared plus 29x plus 13. So what we're going to do for this one is what we like to call the box method. So if you remember before, when we had an equation when x was equal to 1, we knew that x equal to 1, that was going to create so much of a, a square, which we had like an x squared. We could say that these two lengths were x, and then all we needed to do was determine, what two values we could have for our two side lengths here, depending on what our value of c was, right? But now what we have is we have a value of a, I'm sorry, I erased that. Our value of a, our absolute value of a, is equal to 1. So therefore, we're not generally going to have a square. We could also now start having some rectangles, because in this case, if I have 4x, yeah, my two side lengths could be 2x and 2x. But now I could also have a 4x and an x, right? That's still going to give me the same area. So we're going to have to apply a different method for this. So what we're going to do is, by using this technique, we're going to create a rectangle. And the same thing, we're going to look for 4x squared, and we're going to look for 30x. All right. So I'm going to create a nice big box, and I'm going to have 4x squared, and we're going to have 30. Now, in the same regard, what we're going to do is we're going to look for what are the values that are going to multiply to give me 4x squared, but then add to give me 30. And we want to be able to find out our two side lengths. So we're still going to use our x, our little diamond, to help us out with this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our a times c, which would be 4 times 30, which would be 120. So we're still going to do the box method, but instead of grouping, factoring by grouping, we're just going to use this box to help us graph it. So we're still going to do a times c, which is 120. So we need to figure out what two values multiply to give us 120, but then add to give us 30. Now, you might automatically look at 120 and say, whoa, this is way too much. I'm never going to be able to figure out the factors. But let's just take it one step at a time. All right, so we know that we need to find two values that multiply to give us 120, but then add to give us 30. And I think when you see big numbers like this, I think the easiest thing is just start out very, very easy and work your way up. So we know that our two factors have to be positive since they're adding to give us a positive 30. So we could start with 1. 1 times 120 is 120. Go to 2. 2 times 60 gives us 120. 3 times 40. Gives us 120, right? It's not so bad right now. 4 times 30 equals 120. Now let's see is 5. Does 5 go into 120? I'm sorry, not 30. What am I doing? Yeah, 30. But we need these two numbers to add up to b. Sorry about that. Not to add up to 30. We need them to add up to 29. Because remember, it's 8 times c and then b on the bottom. My apologies. So we can say 5. Well, 5 goes in 100. 20 times, and then 5 goes into 20, let's see, 4 times, so that'd be 24. Well, therefore, you can see 5 plus 24 is going to equal 29. Very good. So now what we just need to do is we need to determine with this what are going to be our two values that we can multiply. So we have 5 and 24. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write in, it doesn't matter where you write them in, but let's do 5x and 24x. Now remember, these two terms have to represent, kind of like when we did factor by grouping, these two terms have to represent our middle term x. So that's why we're not going to write them as 5x and, or we're not going to write them as 5 and 24, but we're going to write them as 5x and 24x. Because this, when you add this all up, has to represent, remember, this represents the area. And that area is represented by this expression. All right, so now what we're going to do is now we're given a box with an area. So to factor this, what we're going to do is we need to be able to figure out what are the side lengths. So there's a couple different ways you could do this. So a lot of you, when we looked at the box, we said, well, you could use 2x and 2x, right? But if 2x is here or up here, I know that this is 2x. But then what am I going to have to multiply 2x by to get to 5x? That's going to leave us with a fraction, and I don't really want to do that. So 2x and 2x is not going to work. But what about if I did 4x and x? And the reason why I leave this as 1, because I know that if this is x, to get to 5x, I can multiply this easily by 5. And then I look at here, well, 4x times x gives me 4x squared. And then 4x times what gives me 24? That answers 6. So now, by finding the side lengths of my rectangle, I now have created my two factors. So remember, we're trying to solve this, so we're going to set it equal to 0. And now I just take my two side lengths, which are my two factors, which is 4x plus 5 times x plus 6. Now I can apply my zero product property. So I have 4x plus 5 equals 0, and x plus 6 equals 0. Then I solve for x. So x equals a negative 5/4, and x equals negative 6. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you solve by using the box method. Thanks.